Last year on May 31st, I made a writing advice light video about where horror comes from. However, since making that video, I've read about 5 different gothic horror novels. I've been getting into H.P. Lovecraft's works. I've played a lot of Bloodborne recently, and Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings has been dethroned from the number 1 spot of my favorite books and has been replaced with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I have listened to the entirety of the audiobook twice, and I've even gone as far as to get a physical copy of the book with the sole purpose of marking things down because it's so beautifully written that I actually want to remember what it says, like word for word. I can get very detailed about this book, which makes it really hard for me to make a video about. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to break down how Frankenstein uses a couple of these points that I made in this original video to shatter the golden rule of horror. I have a big problem with the idea of the fear of the unknown, because it's probably one of the most vague pieces of writing advice out there, and it starts to fall apart when you start asking questions. When you get a lottery ticket, there's an element of the unknown there. Whether you win or lose is completely unknown, but neither option is really all that scary. However, there can be something scary about winning the lottery that you may have never considered. That is what happens after you win. Most people are not ready to win the lottery, so how do you protect yourself from thieves or other sorts of dangers that would be after the money you've just won? And how do you not destroy your life in the idea of using your money to make your life better? And even when it comes to losing the lottery, maybe there's a reason you needed so much money. Maybe you have debts that need to be paid. What's going to happen when you don't win? This is what I would call the fear of an unknown outcome. You see this depicted in Frankenstein in the creature. We're not scared of the creature because of how little we know about him. In fact, we know about him so well to where we have a fairly good understanding of what his psychology is kind of like, or at least about as well as any of the other characters in the book. The super strength, speed, and the large stature of the creature makes him very intimidating, yet it's not what makes him scary. Many fictional characters have these same qualities to greater effect, and yet I was never scared that Thanos was under my bed. In fact, I was hoping he was there. Even the way the creature looks, while uncanny and disturbing, like Quasimodo, doesn't make him scary. It just doesn't help his defense for why he wouldn't be considered a Reddit mod today. What makes the creature terrifying is how he's always one step ahead while not being in control of his emotions. He will kill a small child just because of his last name out of a fit of rage, then successfully pin it on a pretty girl because she probably wouldn't love him. That defense is not looking good, sir. There are many genius characters who are evil and not scary, you may reasonably object. And I agree. I think him being inhumanly strong makes him intimidating. I think him looking like 10 different zombies became handsome Squidward. I think that's uncanny and therefore disturbing. But with that element of his character that builds the tension, that being his genius in this case, that makes the difference between him being horrifying and him being the next MCU big bad guy. How do you build the fear of an unknown outcome? You build a thrilling tension around the possibility that you have a slight chance of being able to succeed. In my original video, I give the example that while you can read all sorts of studies and learn everything there is to know about bears, it doesn't make it any less terrifying to be face to face with one, especially one that's mad at you. Or how whatever strategy you may have to face against the bear, it doesn't change the fact that if you mess up, you can be killed in one smack of that bear's claw. And the only bear claw I want in my face is a donut. That was really dumb. I should cut that out. I'm gonna leave that in. Mary Shelley breaks what very well may be the golden rule of horror, which is don't show the monster. Meaning to not show where the monster is, but also don't give away all of the monster's secrets. However, Mary Shelley ignores that latter half, and in Volume 2 and the first half of Volume 3 ignores both elements of that idea, of that rule. She did this because she understood, whether consciously or not, that sometimes knowing everything there is to know about the monster is just as terrifying, if not more so, than not knowing anything at all. There's a reason why there's something so memorable and yet scary about seeing the creature tell Frankenstein,
"You are my creator, but I am your master. Obey."
In Volume 1, Victor heads home from college after being traumatized to the point of being bedridden for a couple of years, because he has been informed of the death of his brother William.
While I watched the tempest, so beautiful yet terrific, I wandered on with a hasty step. This noble war in the sky elevated my spirits. I clasped my hands and exclaimed aloud, "William, dear angel, this is thy funeral. This thy dirge."
This is his mental state, grief-stricken while he's still trying to cope with a psychological break. As he's thinking about his grief at night, we get this passage.
I perceived in the gloom a figure which stole from behind a clump of trees near me. I stood fixed, gazing intently. I could not be mistaken. A flash of lightning illuminated the object and discovered its shape plainly to me. Could he be the murderer of my brother?
This is the one thing that convinces him that the creature murdered his brother, and yet it doesn't prove anything. There's plenty of reason to state that with how bad his mental state was, the creature was probably never actually there. It wouldn't be the first or last time that Victor has had hallucinations like this. And even if the creature was there, being in the woods does not logically add up to him being the murderer. It takes Victor like 2 months to get home, so you can't even prove that the creature was there when William died. Victor's conclusion was true, but the premises that led him there were false. A lot of people will blame Victor for not coming forward about this, but to a degree it seems like even he is aware that he is going off of intuition rather than any actual solid evidence. He can't prove that the creature exists, much less that the creature is also the murderer. That, on top of his panic attacks, leave him completely helpless and at the mercy of his creation. This is conveyed best in the book, not by Victor, but actually by the love of his life, Elizabeth Lavenza. The last 2 chapters of Volume 1 are not about Victor. He is metaphorically getting his liver pecked out by birds again. These chapters focus a lot on Elizabeth. Her good nature and close friendship lend her really well to being the only person who will actually stand up for Justine at her trial.
"I am the cousin of the unhappy child who was murdered. Or rather his sister, for I was educated by and have lived with his parents ever since and even long before his birth. It may therefore be judged indecent in me to come forward on this occasion. But when I see a fellow creature about to perish through the cowardice of her pretended friends, I wish to be allowed to speak, that I may say what I know of her character."
People who dismiss Elizabeth are either absolutely insane or they were not paying enough attention to her, because her entire monologue is heat. Nobody knows that this girl will defend you even when the world is against you, because she sees people for the good that they are. But she's also a woman in the Victorian era trying to defend another woman in the Victorian era. Logic and reason have been tossed out the window, and an innocent woman is hanged to death. Even when the creature acted irrationally, he was still one step ahead of all of our characters. We know that it's possible to win against him, but there's no telling what will happen when we try. Which leads me to one more thing I want to mention before this video concludes. I feel I would be doing not only the original video, but also Mary Shelley's Frankenstein a disservice if I don't touch on the category of what kind of monster category the creature falls under. Because Mary Shelley has two editions of Frankenstein, the 1818 edition and the 1831 edition, which is the most popular one. There are not many big differences between the two, but there is one that I want to touch on in this video. In the 1831 edition of Frankenstein, there is a lot added to the beginning of the book to imply that Victor is destined to create the creature. Now, I have not yet read the 1818 edition, so for clarity, I don't know the extent of this change. This idea that Victor is driven by fate builds a sense of dread and foreshadowing throughout the narrative, especially when he creates the creature and has no exit routes. The creature is not only based in the fear of human control of science, but also in the fear of destiny. Because no matter what Victor does, whether he complies with the creature's wishes or not, he has either doomed himself and his family, or he has doomed the world. I believe Victor is written with the intention of being a hero with a redemption arc. He commits crimes against humanity and then spends the entire rest of the book doing everything he can to keep it from hurting his loved ones. It's not until far too late that he finally realizes that he can't keep running, but has to face the creature head on, killing it himself. He is tortured mentally and physically in the Arctic with only one man to confide in, gifting knowledge to humanity to make us rethink our ambition in hopes that we won't use our ambition wrongly. He dies, unable to get his revenge, leaving a legacy that gives him the title of the modern Prometheus.